Good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome all of you to our TPA workshop on the NADSP eBadge Academy. This is a follow-up session from a session we had a couple of weeks ago to promote the ARPA initiative for training and credentialing programs. So we had quite a bit of interest in continuing to learn more. So I'm very happy that we were able to bring back Desiree Laux-Baer and Dan Hermrich from the National Alliance of Direct Support Professionals talk to us a little bit more today about NADSP's eBadge Academy. So as you get settled in, the session is being recorded. We will hand off really and let you hear and speak with NADSP directly. I'm just going to briefly go through a couple of slides before bringing in Dan and Desiree and asking them to sort of take over from there. So just to go back to our last session, we had conducted a poll of the people who attended our last workshop just to promote the ARPA initiative in PA. We had quite a big response in terms of people who were interested in learning more about eBadge Academy. So we had about 78% of the people said that they were interested, of 45 who voted. Likewise, we had a lot of people in our poll indicate that they would be interested in doing some sort of a collaboration among other TPA members in a training credentialing program. So while we're very excited about that, we hope we can pull that together. The timeliness right now in terms of getting your applications in is really our first priority. So we want to emphasize that. Somewhere down the line, I'm sure we can have conversations about the ability to maybe share information, learn a little bit more, maybe develop some intended goals and outcomes through some type of pilot based on the credentialing programs that everybody wants to look into and evaluate and what you would hope to achieve. Part of what you have to think about in filing your applications anyway. So a lot to talk about today. We're, again, very grateful to have Desiree and Dan with us to go through some of these things with eBadge Academy. So the objectives I just want to briefly go through. We want to really help you determine your provider cost to adopt and implement eBadge Academy. So details around the average cost per user, per license, if there's any other scenarios that you need to consider. Any sort of onboarding or implementation costs that you need to be considering as you put any program into place. So Desiree and Dan can help walk through some of that. Providing recommendations on how staff training hours would be paid for, and also any replacement costs that you build into your programs in terms of additional credentialing costs that you would want to build into your proposals. So bottom line, to really sort of get you to an estimated financial commitment that you could then make educated determinations on what you would want to put into your application. So we also kind of want to look ahead to illustrating expected or typical ongoing costs in the program. Currently, right now, you have until October 31 of 2023 to spend any of this ARPA initiative money for training and credentialing programs. We'd like to have members walk away with an understanding of estimated costs and the needed commitment to make, again, in terms of putting into your ARPA application. So I've mentioned the June 30th deadline. We'll probably talk about that a couple of times throughout the session just to remind everyone of the urgency. You know, you're really at a point, you have about 8 days, if you haven't done so already, to pull this information together and get it in. So we will certainly talk down the road about collaboration opportunities, anything we might be able to do with pricing, cost incentives, information exchange, documenting outcomes. Again, and we think this could be a very informative way amongst ourselves and also to report back to the Office of Developmental Programs in terms of some of the things, not just that we hope to accomplish, but also to be able to document some of the progress towards some of those goals. So I briefly want to just reflect back on the announcement itself. So this is just an excerpt from ODP announcement 22031, which announced the ARPA money for these initiatives. You can see that certainly a couple of those bullet points are hit head on by the NADSP eBadge Academy. Emphasizing here, of course, once again, the due date. Also the fact that there is significant funding available for this. So it's really the minimum of $100,000 or 1% of your eligible service revenue paid by ODP for either fiscal year 2019, 2020, or 2020, 2021. So whichever is greater of those amounts. Application is basically this. So I think you've all probably seen this before. We certainly shared it at our most recent meetings and our last workshop. So these are the fields that you really have to complete. You send that in to Rick Smith in an email. They will be evaluating these and have been on a rolling basis, but of course we would expect with the June 30th deadline, whatever goes in by the end of the month, they will be taking a look at. getting back in touch with providers with the decision. If they need more information, they will certainly ask that. I've spoken to both Rick and Kristen, and they are certainly encouraging people to apply and encouraging people to be creative in their applications. So with that, I would like to welcome Desiree and Dan. Thank you once again, Desiree and Dan, for being here with us today. We'll turn everything over to you, and feel free to share your slides and information.
Thank you, Patrick, for welcoming us back, and we're happy to be able to share more information. As many of you know, we did this a couple of weeks ago with this group, and we had the questions that Patrick came back with that I'm sure was prompted by many of his members. So we want to do the best we can to help answer those questions. Dan's pulled together a PowerPoint that we will be able to share that'll kind of go through some stuff, but we do encourage questions that can come through the chat or any way that you typically do that for these calls. I'll be monitoring the chat as we go through. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Dan Hermick, our Director of Certification and Accreditation.
All right, thanks, Desiree. And really what I wanted to do is just take the questions that Patrick posed in the email, which again, we know come from all of you, and just do our best to kind of proactively answer those. As always, I'm sure the answers to these questions will only lead to more questions. And as Desiree said, we really encourage you to ask questions as they come up. Let's start with that first question. So how much will it cost to implement the eBadge Academy? And I know this is not the greatest answer in the world, but it really answers it depends. When you're creating this credentialing program for the whole nation, I mean, the nature of the service system is that you have to build a lot of flexibility into the system. So, you know, the same program won't necessarily work in every state. The same program won't necessarily work for every organization within a state. And we've tried really hard to keep the eBadge Academy flexible in how an organization chooses to implement it. That leaves a lot of variables that you're going to have to determine, you know, how you're going to approach them. And we hope that this discussion can help you make those decisions about how you would best implement this program within your organization and what the costs associated with that implementation might be. But it may be very different for each of you. So the average cost per user, that's an easy one. We've got an answer to this. The price per user is in the table there. It depends on two things. It depends on the number of licenses you're purchasing. So this is the per user cost on an annual basis. This is an annual subscription. And obviously the cost gets lower the more licenses you purchase. There is sort of an economy of scale here. There's also a significant discount for NADSP members. If you're an NADSP member organization, then you're going to pay significantly less per user than a non-member organization would. Now that membership is an annual membership. It has a cost as well. It depends on the number of DSPs you employ, what level you would fall in. That information is on the screen as well. For I would say all but the smallest implementations of the eBadge Academy, I think most organizations find that the cost of the membership is more than made up for by the benefit of the discount. But that's math that you should do. Certainly, you know, we want you to get the best price you can. I will say our membership is a calendar year. It runs January through December. July is coming up very soon, and we do start our half price sale in July, where we give you the last half of the current year for half the price. And then in December, you would need to renew it for 2023. Desiree, what am I missing on membership? I don't know if you want to just talk about additional membership benefits.
Absolutely. Let me just so the benefit of membership, in addition to getting a discounted price for the eBadge Academy, is that there's also discounts for other products and services that NADSP provides. We have a number of curricula that can be purchased. They're one-time purchases, and they're used as a train-the-trainer model. So we train you, your organization, your trainers, to be able to utilize that. And with that being said, then your trainers can use it any way you need to in your organization. And Dan, I think you said you put some of that curricula later on in the PowerPoint. If
Yeah,
not,
yeah, we'll have some information about that on an upcoming
in
slide.
addition to that, all of your DSPs, all of your members of your organization get access to our members only portion of the website. That includes a large archived library of webinars. Now, we do a couple of free webinars every month, but once we show them, we put them in the archive. And, if there's something that somebody you would like to be able to see, but they don't work at the time that that webinar was shown, this is the way that they can go back and access it. Or you can use it as part of your training curricula. And anything that is shown on our website also counts as accredited training hours towards the eBadge certification. There's not enough there to fully just use that and not another accredited education program, but it's a really nice supplement. And also then we give your employees the opportunity to have their email put on our listserv so they know we send out stuff every day. So they know what's might be coming up, whether it's a free webinar or it's something else that we've got going. Discounts on our training programs. We do quarterly training as well as we do our annual conference. The last couple of years that's been free and virtual, but we are planning for 2023 in person and possibly in the state of Pennsylvania. So that would give you discounts. As Dan said, it is an annual membership and the membership expires at the end of the year. You need to renew for the next year in order to be able to continue to have access to the website and the discounts and those kinds of things. So it's just kind of a snapshot.
And yeah, thank you, Desiree. And we have a question that came up in the chat I just noticed from Carrie. If you're an agency piloting a program and not immediately rolling all DSPs in, is the cost still based on the full number of DSP workers the agency employs? And so the answer, Carrie, is your price per user for the eBadge Academy is based on the number of licenses you're going to purchase. So whatever that number is that you anticipate a need, the number of seats you anticipate needing for however many DSPs you're going to have participating. The cost of membership, though, is always based on the total number of DSPs you employ. So it's eBadge Academy, it's how many your seats you're going to purchase. Membership, it's how many total DSPs you're going to employ.
Yeah, eBadge Academy is a contracted service. And again, it's also an annual contract. So it's annual based upon the start date that's determined. If its start date is determined as of July 1, then the contract goes from July 1 through June 30th. And we would notify you in June that it's time to renew the contract.
And we have, due to the nature of these ARPA dollars, have had some requests lately to pay for multiple years of access, and we've done our best to honor those and to provide that to people who want it.
Dan, if I could jump in on that point, because
Sure.
We've had those conversations as well with DSP, with ODP rather, about prepayment, and this kind of applies to training curriculum as well, and people who are selling training by subscription. So ODP's position is that they will cover the cost of any membership up through the period of when the funds have to be expensed under the ARPA initiative. So I know some members have been approached to purchase 5-year contracts and things of that nature. ODP has clarified that that's the one thing that they would treat that as a prepaid expense, not an actual expense of the initiative. So for the term of membership or the purchase of licenses up through, right now it's October 31 of 2023. The state, as I think many states, received some extensions from CMS for them to spend the federal money by one year. So the deadline is actually going to move to March 31, 2025. So there's the potential that ODP will extend that for these types of initiatives as well and extend the time frame allowable to spend those monies. But for right now, our guidance is that it would be for the period of time that your subscription runs through October 31, 2023. Just for clarification, that's consistently what we're hearing from ODP at this point. Again, that is subject to change because the extension could be pushed out there, hopefully by another year, at least to October 31 of 2024. In the Q&A, I just want to address quickly, because I know this might apply also to some people that are already using eBadge Academy. Can the funds be requested for a currently functioning badge training program? So some of the guidance we're also receiving is, certainly be creative. I don't think that ODP would penalize anybody for trying to expand, but I would encourage people to sort of look at what else you might do in addition to what you're already doing. It's possible that they could look upon it as anything that you're already spending. I know that they're doing that in terms of typical training guidelines, training requirements. They want this to be new initiatives, new investment. However, if you're already doing something, I would suggest that you find a way to sort of augment that in some way, build that into your application proposal, not necessarily go back and say, we're already doing this and we'd like to use this initiative money to cover some of those existing expenses. I would just encourage people through the guidance we've received from ODP to be creative in your submission and certainly make it be something new that you're adding on or expanding the program or number of licenses or different areas. So sorry for the interruption, Dan and Desiree.
No, that's great.
So we did have another question, and we are going to be kind of covering some of this, but the question is, so the eBadge program is $50 per DSP, and is that the full cost to complete that program? And Dan's going to cover that in a minute, but the $50 per DSP would be if you were to purchase 500 seats or more, and you were a member agency. So if that was what your plan was, you were going to do a large eBadge program to cover over 500 DSPs, that would be one of the costs that would be affiliated with this. So Dan, you want to go from there?
Yeah. So we will talk about, this really is the check you're going to cut to NADSP for eBadge Academy. This really is the only expense. You're going to have other expenses, but in terms of what you're paying NADSP for access, you're not going to pay extra fees for badges that are earned. You're not going to pay extra fees for initial certifications that are earned. This is the subscription cost for access to the program. What people do once they have access to the program is really up to them. You can have some really, really enthusiastic, energetic DSPs who are getting a lot of support and a lot of time to work on this, and they might get a lot done in that contract year. They might get all the way through DSP3 certification in that contract year. When others, are probably going to chip away at it more gradually. Things are going to get in the way. There's going to be times where their program is short-staffed and they're working a lot of overtime and they're exhausted and they're just not putting a lot of effort into the certification process at that point in time. We see that a lot. We see people that are active and then go quiet for a period, and then are active again and then go quiet for a period. That's kind of the nature. And that's really part of our design, is that DSPs can work on their certification when other duties allow.
So Dan, we have a question from Carrie. Is this the same cost of the frontline supervisor badge contract per seat if you have over 500 DSPs? And the answer is that the contract is for seats, and you can utilize those seats for DSPs or frontline supervisors.
Yeah, you'll have access to the number of seats you contract for, and you can use those seats for DSPs. You can use those seats for supervisors. It's completely up to you. They're your seats to do with as you wish. All right.
And how many total hours are needed to fully complete the program? And so go ahead, Dan.
So there's 100 hours of accredited education that would be required, and that's certainly going to take 100 hours. The other work that's done is going to be a little dependent on the DSP. There are lots of badge submissions that will need to be sent in. Our position is that each of those submissions should take about 15 minutes to put together, but not everyone is going to be successful with their first submission. So you're going to have some DSPs that have to apply for the same badge 4 or 5 or 6 times in some cases. They're struggling a little bit. You're going to have other DSPs that get it the first time. And so it's going to be variable. It's going to be really variable for different people, different DSPs. And are the seats used for unlimited badges? Well, there's only a certain number of badges available, but when you have access to the eBadge Academy through that learner seat, you can apply for any badge you wish to apply for, as many as you wish to apply for.
And we are constantly expanding the eBadge Academy. So yes, we do have a limited number of badges, but that is something that is growing. We're going to be adding some more specialized badges as time goes on. So it's just, unfortunately, Dan only can work 24 hours a day. And so, he just hasn't been able to get the rest of the new ones that we want up and running quite yet.
So I think we'll answer some of these questions that might be forming in some of these slides. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next slide. This is the third question that was posed to us about the additional costs you might incur. So the stuff we talked about in the previous slide, that's what you're going to pay to NADSP. You're also going to need access to an accredited education program. And many of you might already be using an accredited education program like Relias or Open Future Learning or College of Direct Support. That might be a cost that's already part of your budget, and it wouldn't really be anything additional. Now, we've talked to a lot of Pennsylvania organizations, and some of them have told us, well, we have a few Relias seats, but we know we're going to need more, when we implement this, or we're going to need more access to College of Direct Support when we implement this. We're using it in a limited way, but we're going to have to expand that. Certainly, there will be costs with either contracting with those accredited education providers, with expanding your contracts with those accredited education providers. We can't really tell you what those costs would be because those are separate companies. We accredit their material, but they are independent of NADSP, and that would be something you would work out with them. You should think about how you're going to compensate people who earn certifications. What is your monetary reimbursement structure going to look like? Are you going to do ongoing salary increases? That would be great if you can figure out how to do that. With the ARPA money being one-time money, I think bonuses might be a lot more attractive for a lot of reasons. What is that bonus structure going to look like, and how many people do you anticipate completing each level of certification? How many bonuses are you going to be paying out? Again, we don't really have easy answers for those questions. You are the experts on your own organization. I would say that we can provide you some information, but ultimately you're going to be better equipped to decide what those numbers look like and what an effective incentive would be. There's going to be staff time involved, right? So certainly the accredited training hours are going to take time. And that could be time that you're pulling DSPs away from other duties. And how are you going to fund that? Certainly, because it's probably not something you're going to be able to bill for. And how are you going to staff that? How are you going to staff a situation where people are spending some time on the computer completing online lessons more so than they're already doing? Again, it's 50 hours of accredited education for the first level of certification, 100 hours for the second level. So, think a little bit about that and those costs and those logistics. We're going to, when you sign a contract with us, we're going to train a local administrator at your organization. And it's really a really crucial role we have learned over the years. The local administrator is a key support person for the DSPs in the program. I would say the better the connection, the better the communication, the better the relationship DSPs have with that local administrator, the more successful they will be. And so who is that person going to be? Who is that person in your organization that would be best equipped to support DSPs in this program, to answer their questions, to be available when they forget a password or they're confused about a denial that they received on a submission? Who is that going to be, and how much time are they going to be able to allocate to this program? I would say, the better equipped that local administrator is, the more success you're going to see. So that's a really important consideration. And then there are recertification costs in future years, and we're going to talk about those in a lot more detail in a later slide.
So Dan, we have a question. I know
Okay.
we'll get this answer too, but are the frontline super badge options able to be covered by the College of Direct Support training, or does the College of Direct Support supervisor application need to be added for frontline supervisor to attain their badge?
So the courses that are approved in direct course for frontline supervisors, they're called the College of Frontline Supervision and Management. And I know several years ago, those were included with the College of Direct Support. My understanding is that they're more of a separate product now. Again, I don't work for direct course. I don't know all the details of how they're packaging their offerings, but you would need access to those College of Frontline Supervision and Management courses to earn the frontline supervisor certification, unless you were getting those hours from another source.
All right, and then I have a question. We have a question. Can you explain more how the eBadge Academy works in conjunction with the accredited education program? And the WebEx we did a couple of weeks ago, I believe was recorded, right, Patrick? And that does kind of play out how we use accredited education. And we didn't really plan to be able to go over all of that today, but if we can get that recording, we will. And if not, you can set up a call with us and we can go through it with you.
I would just say very briefly that, I mean, our view is that the accredited education program is where the knowledge comes from, where the information that DSPs need comes from. The eBadge Academy is all about how are they applying that knowledge on the job in real situations. So for us, it's the closure of a loop. You get the training, that's wonderful, that's important. What our question is really about is how are you applying the training in real situations on the job? All right, let me close this chat window so I can see my screen again. The fourth question about the costs of training hours needed. I mean, it's up to 100 hours. It's 50 hours at the first level of certification. It's 100 hours at the second level for the accredited education. So that potentially will be some staff time that you'll need to cover somehow. In terms of purchasing the curriculum, whether that's College of Direct Support, Relias, Open Future Learning. Again, we're not affiliated with those companies in any sort of way other than the fact that we accredit their programs. The costs are going to have to come from quotes that you get from those companies. And I will say we try very, very hard at NADSP to always be neutral in terms of which program is the right program. I would recommend, if you're not already using one of those accredited programs, I would certainly look at the big three online training providers: College of Direct Support, Relias, and Open Future Learning. They all meet our standards. They all meet our standards in very different ways. And we've certainly had a lot of organizations that we have talked to about the eBadge Academy that have looked at all three and have come back and told us that they had a clear favorite. That in looking at all three, there was one that was really it was the right fit for their organization. And that's always what we would encourage. Look at all three and pick the one that's the right fit for you.
So Dan, we have a question which I can answer. It says, can you join the membership to only access the training material and resources without completing the training hours? So the training hours are not something that we control. That would be something through the accredited education. You can use our materials that are found in our archive, and that can count. But again, they're really meant to be supplemental, not the resource for the entire 100 hours. With that being said, you can join membership to access those, whether you go to the eBadge Academy or not. The eBadge Academy is going to be a separate cost above and beyond membership. And then our curricula is also a separate cost. But the webinars that we have in our archive, that would be included in the membership. Next.
Oh, here, I should have probably gone to this slide earlier, but this is the complete list of fully accredited programs. And I've put in bold, the most commonly used: College of Direct Support, Relias, and Open Future Learning. We already had the question about College of Direct Support versus College of Frontline Supervision and Management. Relias is a little unique, and Relias has a very vast catalog. Not every Relias course is accredited. We have some Relias courses that are accredited for direct support professionals, some that are accredited for frontline supervisors, and certainly there are many that are accredited for both. You would want, if you have access to Relias, you would want to use the filters within their software to look at which courses are accredited for DSPs, which courses are accredited for frontline supervisors. Open Future Learning courses are accredited for DSPs only. So if you're choosing to go with Open Future Learning, you would need some other program if you're wanting hours for your frontline supervisors. And that might be by using the NADSP frontline supervisor curriculum. We do have a lot of organizations that use Open Future Learning for the DSP hours and use our frontline supervisor curriculum for the frontline supervisor hours. We have that curriculum. We have other curricula as well. We have a code of ethics curriculum. We have an informed decision-making curriculum. Those three all have kind of the same cost structure, that it's $2,500 for non-members, $2,000 for members. And then there is an additional cost of the train the trainer session. And certainly we can do that in person, but it's a lot more cost effective if we do it virtually. The onboarding curriculum is a smaller curriculum. It's designed to be very concise and very accessible to brand new DSPs that are coming into the field for the first time. It's really just sort of a sampling of a lot of different topics that we feel are important for new DSPs. And it's not, it's not the mandatory stuff. Like all the stuff we do, it's really focused on the overall philosophy of the approach to direct support, the competencies and the code of ethics. So that cost is different because it's a sort of a smaller, more contained program. $1,200 for non-members, $900 for members. We would do a shorter train the trainer session for $500 for a virtual session. It's probably not worth it to bring us out in person to do that short of a session, so we just have the virtual option. We also offer a videos only option where you just get access to the recorded webinars of NADSP staff going through the material. That is just $600 for access to the videos only, no access to the PowerPoints, no train the trainer, just the video recordings by themselves.
And Dan, I just put a link in the chat that takes you to the page that talks about our curricula for people to get more descriptions about what each of those curricula contain.
Perfect. So that might be part of your program. Might include one of those NADSP curricula. Okay, the expected and typical ongoing costs to achieve the certifications. So there are no additional costs to achieve the initial certification. You're paying for access to the eBadge Academy. You're paying that ongoing annual subscription. If a DSP is in one of your learner seats, they can earn as many badges and as many certifications during the period of time they have access. So it's really determined by what they're able to accomplish during that time that they have a learner seat. Now, when it's time to renew the certification, there is a $50 fee to renew the certification. The timeline for renewal is that the certification must be renewed 2 years after the most recent certification. And the way I often describe this is that the clock resets with each new level of certification. So if I were to earn a DSP 1 today, normally that would mean that I would need to renew that certification on June 22nd, 2024, right? That's 2 years from today. But if in that period of time I earn a DSP 2 certification, let's say I earned that in December of this year, well, then I don't have to renew my certification until December of 2024. And maybe, early next year, or maybe it takes me a while longer, maybe in October of next year, I earn my DSP 3 certification. Now I don't need to worry about renewal until October of 2025, 2 years from that most recent certification that I had earned. So we don't have a lot of people that recertify at level 1. Most people that earn a level 1 earn a level 2 within the next 2 years. Most people that earn a level 2 earn a level 3 within the 2 years after that. So this is a cost that might be quite a ways down the road, but it is a $50 renewal fee. We do require 20 hours of education in the 2 years since the most recent certification. We need those documented and submitted. For the recertification, this training does not have to be NADSP accredited, but we do require that no more than 8 hours are from mandatory trainings, that at least 12 of your 20 hours have to be focused on your professional development, and not just, checking the box to make sure that you have met the requirement.
And Dan, we had a question that I did answer in the chat, but I'll bring it up here too. Does the NADSP training curriculum need to be used for credentialing, or can we use Relias only? And you do not need to use the NADSP training as part of your accredited education. If you are using something else and you choose to use some of our information, it does count towards accredited training hours, but it's not mandatory.
Right. Right. I mean, the requirement is for level 1, 50 hours of accredited education. And where those 50 hours come from is totally up to you. We have organizations that do use only Relias. We have organizations that use a combination of Relias and College of Direct Support, or a combination of Relias and Open Future Learning. We have organizations that use some NADSP webinars with Relias, or with Open Future Learning, or with College of Direct Support. Whatever combination is fine with us. The key is it's got to be at least 50 or at least 100 hours, and it's got to all be material that has been accredited by NADSP.
The other thing is that there's no statute of limitations on when that training occurred. So someone might have gotten some College of Direct Support classes 2 or 3 years ago. That will count. And maybe, they're now using Relias, so they can mix and match. It can go back a few years. We're not looking at it being something that has to be done since the point of contract with us.
Yeah, the key there is that you've got to still have the documentation. We can't do anything if the documentation can't be provided. And I do hear from DSPs on a fairly regular basis about, like, hey, 3 jobs ago, I did all the CDS classes. I know I've done them all, does that count? And my answer is always, well, it counts if you can show me the documentation. It doesn't matter how many years ago. I've approved transcripts where they had courses from 2013 fairly recently. We don't have a sunset period on those training hours.
And Rose, I hope that just answered your question. So how many years would it count? It's, again, as long as the documentation is there, we'll accept it.
All right, and that's really the end of the slideshow of the questions we kind of pre-prepared. But again, we're happy to answer any other questions you have. I put the slides from our previous presentation in this slideshow just in case we needed them for reference. But yeah, that is kind of what we prepared ahead of time, and we're happy to answer any other questions that you have.
After the first 2-year period for recertification, does it roll forward like that? 2 years later, another 20 hours and recertification is due? The answer is yes.
Yes.
And is the slide deck available? Patrick?
I can
push it out. Go ahead, Dan, if you want to share with me, I'll share with the group. I'll also offer that we will send out the link to this recording and also your May 27th presentation to the attendees here today, so they can go back and review some of the things that you referenced then.
All right, yeah, Patrick, I will share that slide deck with you and let you distribute it to your members.
Okay. That would be great. And I think you've really raised interesting issues around the incentives. We really haven't touched upon that a lot, so I appreciate you raising it. So I do want to call it out for all of our members on the call. So you could choose to develop a program to incentivize people to earn their level 1 badge during the time frame that ODP is specifying. You could pay a bonus that would not be a recurring cost. So something to consider. And we didn't really address it at the outset in today's presentation, but I know at the last workshop on the 10th, we talked about sort of figuring out your budget. So you've got the $100,000, but you may have significantly more than that based on your own calculation of 1% of your ODP revenue. So I would encourage you to take a look at that. And also, Dan and Desiree bringing up membership. I would encourage our members just run the numbers on that. You may find that you're, based on the licenses that you're anticipating, that works for you to include that and maybe a savings to you. So I would build all of these costs in, certainly knowing your budget, and you may not be bumping up against the funding limit under this initiative, under these guidelines. So looking at how you might incentivize people to attain the academy. Appreciate that Dan and Desiree have sort of pointed you in the right direction. You will need to get those costs to build this all in, but that was really the expectation today, was based on your questions from the last session, to really hone in on what you can put in this application and consider everything that you need to do. So again, Dan, Desiree, I appreciate you raising that issue in particular and covering all these details from questions that have been raised previously.
All right, so Carrie's asking, Patrick, to be clear, the NADSP badge system in conjunction with a system like College of Direct Support is all that is needed to complete the program and receive certification. The NADSP curricula training is not required, correct? And the answer is correct. You do not have to have NADSP curricula to participate in the eBadge Academy or to complete certification. It's just an option that can be included, but it's not required. How do we reach Dan or Desiree for more questions? I just put, just above that, Carrie, I put our email addresses. I hope you can see that. And also, if for some reason you don't see it, you can, if you go to our website, which is www.nadsp.org, and you click on staff, you can link to our emails that way as well.
We are very easy to find.
Yes, we are.
And we will try to include all this information in a follow-up email to everybody. With the links I've mentioned, we'll include your email address. Thank you. Certainly appreciate, Dan and Desiree, your openness, willingness to talk to members. Certainly want to encourage that for questions they have of you as we work through the next week here and hopefully get some more applications submitted.
And thank you for letting us come in. We're excited about working with all of you in the state of Pennsylvania, or as many of you who are interested in doing that. It's been fun to meet with so many organizations across Pennsylvania, and we hope that this is going to be something that's going to be definitely beneficial. We do hope that once we start getting contracts, we're going to be able to work with you, Patrick, and your organization and other organizations in Pennsylvania to find some way to collect some data that will help inform your state as to how this will benefit the organizations that are located there. So we've been working with Amy Hewitt out of the University of Minnesota on a contract we're doing with New York State, and we're hoping that some of that same information we'll be collecting in New York, we can also collect in Pennsylvania for both your benefit as well as ours.
That would be great, Desiree. Yeah, thank you both so much for being here today. Just last call for any questions you have. Certainly after the session is over, feel free to reach out to me, to Dan, to Desiree directly. Any support we can provide as you approach the deadline, please reach out for any of the needs that you have. We really want to encourage everybody to apply for the money, put together a good program, and hopefully establish a really good opportunity to work together on this initiative more broadly going forward. So Dan and Desiree, thank you so much again for being here today. Thanks everybody who joined the call. Again, we'll get information out to you that we've discussed today, and we look forward to seeing a lot of applications going and working on this in the future.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks everyone. Have a great day.
You too.
Talk to everyone soon.